Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here and welcome to episode 4 of Gold Goes to the Movies. How in the world have I already done 4 of these? Time has flown. Bit more of a cinema heavy week this week, trying to make up for last week when I wasn't able to get out to cinema. So we've got 2 cinema films in this one that's only left the cinema a couple of months ago, and another one that's been floating about on streaming services in recent weeks, months. So 3 2024 films and 1 2023 film. As with the normal themes, movie prop behind me. I pretty much am at the end of my movie prop / toys. I don't know if you can work out what that is. There you go, a little bit closer there, so you can figure that one out. It's probably not the most difficult thing in the world to work out. It's going to fall over if I leave it there. Last week's one, a fair few people got it. It was indeed Staff of Ra, well, the headpiece of the Staff of Ra from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And yeah, see if you know this one. It probably doesn't look too much like it does in the movie, apart from a certain point in it. T-shirt, of course, very simple one today, movie T-shirt. Let's get straight into the movies. Let's not mess about. Let's talk about the movies. Like I say, 2 cinema releases. We've got Civil War and we've got Monkey Man. The other film that is only very recently in the movies, cinemas, which is now on Apple TV, is Argylle. And then another film that my wife and I just settled down on a Saturday night to watch. Something a little bit fluffy, a little bit daft, a little bit of a throwaway film, and that was About My Father. So we're going to talk about those 4 films. Let's start with Civil War, because I have just returned from the cinema only, an hour or 2 ago, not too long ago. I really enjoyed it. It's I would recommend, if you can, see it at the cinema. It feels like a bit of a cinema experience. There's a scale to it, a scope to it. It wasn't quite the movie I actually expected going into the cinema, which sounds like it's a bad thing, but actually it's not necessarily at all a bad thing. It was just a little bit different to what I was expecting. But I really enjoyed it. It's brutal, it's unforgiving, it's beautifully shot. The colours are so rich throughout it. And there's moments when those colours are kind of taken away. It's quite unnerving, and suddenly you feel a little bit anxious, and it all feeds into that. It's very good. The main story itself, if you're not aware, it follows a team of journalists, photojournalists, making their way across America to Washington while a civil war rages around them. It's a kind of fascinating premise. It's one of those where I think it's supposed to be set in the very near future, but it feels like it's now. There's nothing in it to suggest that it is in the future. There's nothing, unless I missed it, nothing that is futuristic in any way. It just feels like it's right now. It could just be an alternate version of what's happening right now. And yeah, it's a fascinating premise, this idea of certain states within the United States of America turning against the rest of the country. And it all builds towards this kind of high tension finale, I guess is the best way to put it, in the nation's capital. It's a really interesting film, and it shows you the cost and the toll of war and the division on all sides. And some people out there have complained that it doesn't pick a side, the movie itself. And I might be different in this aspect, but I kind of like that. I like the fact that I'm not being told what's the side I should choose. Not being told what's right or wrong. I guess kind of because in the real world, in war and things like that, I suppose it's never really quite as clear as it might seem sometimes, perhaps. And maybe that's the message of this film, is that no, it's on you to pick kind of who you want to side with and who's the right kind of side in all of this as well. It's written and directed by the Englishman Alex Garland. If you're not aware of him, I think most people are going to be after this film if they haven't already. He did Ex Machina, or Machina, I think it's Machina, which I liked way back with. That was a good film. It's a very different kind of film to Civil War, but well worth a watch. And he did other films, Men and Annihilation, which I haven't seen. But as a writer, you might know him as the writer of The Beach, which got turned into a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, directed by Danny Boyle. Wasn't it the film that came out after Titanic, or Leonardo DiCaprio's next one? So everyone kind of went a bit mad for it. And Alex Garland also wrote other Danny Boyle films, 28 Days Later and Sunshine. He also, interestingly, I didn't realise this, I was kind of looking back into some stuff, he wrote Dredd, which is the Judge Dredd, not the original Sylvester Stallone one. It was the one that starred Carl Urban. Was it 2012? And Carl Urban has done an interview a couple of years back where he pretty much admitted that Garland ended up pretty much directing the film as well as being the writer because of various problems that there were as it went on and post-production and everything. I haven't watched it in years, Dredd, but I do vaguely remember thinking it was way better than I expected it was going to be when I went in to watch it. And I think, unless I'm completely mistaken, I feel like it was quite a smaller story set in a tower block, and it was quite a decent film in bearing in mind what I was expecting going into it. So you can see that's quite a varied kind of back catalogue Garland's got, and I think he kind of just brings it all together in Civil War. There was actually some talk that he was going to retire after this movie from some quotes that he came out with in an interview and concentrate on screenwriting, but he's kind of walked that back since and said, no, that's not the case. I kind of said I could either step back or do more screenwriting and everything. And I hope he doesn't step back because I really enjoyed this. It was a really fascinating kind of, like I say, brutal and unflinching study of perhaps where the world might end up going at and what it could be like, and obviously using the US as a template for it all. The cast is excellent. Kirsten Dunst, she's just brilliant in everything she does. I'm trying to think of any films I've seen her in where she hasn't been fantastic. Movie that might not have been great, but she's pretty much always great. I think this is the first film she's done since The Power of the Dog. Unless I'm mistaken, I think it is. Or certainly the first that's come out since then, which she was wonderful in that movie as well. Very slow film, very, very slow film, but she was excellent in it and very powerful film in moments. I was thinking back, it's mad that it is now 22 years since she was Mary Jane in the first Spider-Man movie. And if you want to feel even older, 30 years since she was a little child in Interview with a Vampire, which is, that makes me feel so old. And I guess now she is an older, experienced actress. She's able to bring in a movie like this. She kind of plays this world-weary, experienced photojournalist, and she's excellent. She's kind of the gravitas in the movie. She's the anchor of it all, where everything kind of goes around her. The relationships that each character has kind of go through her. And she's superb. And one of those relationships she has, in a platonic sense, is with the lead male, I guess. I still feel this is Kirsten Dunst's film, but the lead male is Wagner Moura, who, I don't know if it's Wagner or Wagner. He's a Brazilian actor who, it took me a little while to get used to seeing him kind of looking like a Hollywood leading man, because my main memory of seeing him in anything is as a slightly overweight, moustached Pablo Escobar in Narcos, in which he's absolutely incredible. He's been in other He's been in other Hollywood movies in smaller roles, but I kind of feel like after watching this, I think we might see him now step up to be a bit more of a leading man, I guess, in other films. He's that good in it. He really. It's a terrific performance from him as well. He's very good. Kaylee Spaney, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She plays a young kind of wannabe photojournalist that tags along with the group. And she's very good in taking you on the journey. I guess she's our eyes and she's the kind of maybe, I don't know, perhaps our eyes and ears in this, because Kirsten Dunst and Wagner Moura's characters have been in war zones. They've been kind of war journalists or photojournalists, and they kind of know the horrors that can come from these scenarios and situations, whereas she's kind of thrust into this. She's only 26 in real life, but actually in this movie she looks far younger. She looks like she could be 17, 18 or so, and I think that actually adds to the innocence of it all and how she just feels like this young character who's so excited to be involved in all of this, but actually has to then take on the very real implications of what it means to thrust yourself into the most dangerous possible scenarios. I'm trying to think of other characters. She's been in Priscilla most recently as the title character, the Priscilla Presley movie. She was in Pacific Rim Uprising a few years back as well, but this kind of feels like like with Wagner Moura, that this is maybe going to be a bit of a breakout role for her. I hope so, because she's very good in it as well. The final member of the main group that you see in this film is Stephen McKinley Henderson, and he's one of those actors that you'll have seen him in other stuff. He's one of these very familiar guys. You will see him and you'll think, wasn't he in that movie? Wasn't he in that main TV show kind of thing? He was in June Part 1. He was in Fences, the Denzel Washington films, in Lady Bird, and pretty much any long-running big American TV show, he's been in it for an episode or two. He brings that kind of... You'll know him when you see him. He kind of brings this gravitas to what he does and this authority to his character. And he's got a really kind of lovely role within this film and what he brings to it. There's various other actors that turn up and actresses. There's Jefferson White's in it. He's someone I love from Yellowstone. He turns up in a smaller role. Nick Offerman, who I was only speaking about last week in The Founder, he turns up. He's the president in this. You'll have probably seen him if you've seen the trailer for this. And really interesting, Kirsten Dunst's husband, Jesse Plemons, who I will always know as Landry from Friday Night Lights, despite the fact that he's gone on to be brilliant in loads of other stuff. He was in Killers of the Flower Moon, he was in Power of the Dog that I mentioned earlier, he was in Fargo, I think it was the first series, I'm trying to remember now. And it's only a small role he's got in Civil War, but wow, it is one that will stick with you long after the credits have gone. He's menacing. And actually, apparently, his appearing in it only happened by pure chance because the actor that was meant to be in this role pulled out, and Kirsten Dunst suggested to Alex Garland, well, my husband's quite a talented actor. He could maybe play this. And it just turned out, I don't know why she had a strange English accent, but it just turned out that Jesse Plemons was available, and he comes in, and honestly, it's a movie-stealing little turn. He's only in it for 5 to 10 minutes, maybe. I can't remember exactly. I wasn't sitting there in the cinema going, okay. But it's a small kind of role, but it is such an important role, and it's helpful for development of other characters and for the plot, and yeah, just menacing, really menacing. I'm intrigued to see kind of if he plays more characters like that going forward. I think he's done a couple, but as I say, just Landry. Just know him as Landry in Friday Night Lights. Superb. And it's doing very well at the box office. I think it's topping the box office in America. I really recommend it. It won't be for everyone. I think the ending might divide some people as well. But it is a film, I think, that draws you in. And like I said about Jesse Plemons' performance, I think it also kind of sticks with the film as well, is that it remains in your head a bit afterwards. And some movies can be quite throwaway, and this one kind of it just stuck with me a bit. On my drive home, I was just thinking like, oh wow, what if the world ends up going that way? It's going to be horrendous. I know there's a lot of things that are wrong with the world, and there's lots of problems and wars and things like this. But it gave you a glimpse, kind of, I guess, if a lot of the internal problems that we see in countries around the world, if it was kind of on your own backyard, not that I'm American, but I'm sure for Americans to see how this could play out, and obviously a country that has its history of a huge civil war, in the modern era, how horrendous that could be. Not that it wasn't horrendous in the past, but you know what I mean. Honestly, really kind of a double thumbs up to that one. I think most of the reviews that I've seen have been pretty overwhelmingly praising for it. Like I say, there's a few that feel like it should have picked a side, but I don't really feel that. I don't know. I don't always think that's a movie's role. I think a movie is meant to give you different sides of something and let you. It's almost like when you get endings in movies and people are like, well, how did it actually end? What happened at the end? Obviously, a TV idea is The Sopranos, the ending of The Sopranos. But in movies, I love the fact that a movie gives you the chance to make of it what you will. And I think that's so important. I think this was a big element of this to me. Terrific film. Next up, also in the cinemas, Monkey Man. Completely different kind of film. I loved it. I did. I really loved it. Both cinema trips last week, have been highly successful. Both of them were excellent. Monkey Man is a directorial debut of Dev Patel. It's an absolute cracker. Think John Wick in India only with a really strong story and using the fight scenes in the right moments and building up to a huge climax of a fight, rather than just lobbing them at you every couple of minutes with increasingly clever fight scenes. Look, I love the John Wick movies. I really do enjoy them. But this is a little bit more. There's something more to it than just a kind of John Wick film. But I think it's the fighting in it, I think, is inspired by the John Wick films. I think you can see that. I'm really disappointed that compared to Civil War, I was just talking about it top in the box office, that apparently Monkey Man is underperforming at the box office. And that means, I guess, one good side for people that want to watch it is it sounds like it might be coming to streaming a lot sooner. I think it may already be on its way to streaming. Whether that's, I think, probably in a pay for it version. But yeah, I've no doubt I think it'll be a big hit on streaming, because I think it's one of those that will grow and grow. And the more people that will watch it will say, have a watch of that. It's a really good film. It's a really kind of roller coaster, fast paced and furious, really good acting as well within an action film, which you don't always get. Critics really enjoyed it. The audiences that have seen it have really enjoyed it. It's just a real shame. Maybe just, I don't know, maybe people thought it was just going to be a bit of a kind of a knockoff of John Wick in India. And it's not. It's so much more than that. In essence, it's the tale of a young man looking for vengeance years after his mother was killed. It's horrible death of his mother when he was a child. And it kind of pits him against, it pits him against what is a corrupt government in the movie and a police force and everything. And just the way he goes about it. I think apparently the movie was originally with Netflix. And then Jordan Peele came on as a producer. When Netflix started to waver about it, he got Universal Pictures to come in and buy it. And yeah, he kind of really pushed the film as part of his production company. And don't look anywhere else for this movie other than Dev Patel. Dev Patel is the star in every level of this film. His direction, I think, is just breathless. It's such a challenge of a first film. Honestly, at one moment it can be kind of really dramatic and heart-rendering, and the next one it's very subtle. It can be showing you a character that's really kind of giving you a little bit of growth to, and the next minute has the most fast and furious and incredible fight scenes, all filmed for a really low budget as well. Apparently the budget was only $10 million and they had to use at points iPhones and GoPros and things like that. You would have no idea. It looks like an expensive Hollywood film. We talk about John Wick. It looks like it's got the feeling of those hyper stylized glossy fights as well, but also kind of within the backdrop of India and this city, which kind of feels like it's meant to be Mumbai, I think, and I don't think it's ever called that. I think it's got another name beginning with Y. I can't remember the name of it, but it feels very much like Mumbai. And it's shot beautifully. The way it captures the kind of the light and colours of the city, but also the kind of darkness and sometimes like grubbiness and seediness of it all. He co-wrote the screenplay actually with Paul Argylle and John Colley, and as the main lead in it all, he's a brilliant action hero. There is no way, when I think back to the young actor from Slumdog Millionaire or Neil, the social media journalist in the newsroom, which I used to love as well, I would not have envisaged Dev Patel as becoming an action hero. But here he is. Honestly, he gets himself in shape. But he's a bit of a different kind of action hero. He's not like a hulking kind of brute of an action hero. He's a lithe, muscular fighter of a guy, and I think that's the strength of the movie, that we know Dev Patel is a terrific actor, and thus he brings more to it. It's a kind of a deeper, more grounded action hero than maybe you get in a lot of films. I really enjoyed it, and actually, incidentally, he also broke his hand during production, and he was so desperate not to let everyone down that the film, like the production, had to halt. He kept going. This is a fighting movie, or in scenes it has many fight scenes, and yet he had a broken hand. He plays, I think he's only referred to as Kid. I'm not sure if that's meant to be his real name or just what he's referred to, but that's the title he's given in the credits. The supporting cast are brilliant. Sikander Kher is probably killing the pronunciation that. He's a very menacing villain. I would imagine again we'll see more of him now in the Hollywood mainstream as well. Vipin Sharma has a terrific kind of guiding role for Kid. When he falls, he kind of helps him back on his feet. Pitobash is is an actor who plays this kind of comic relief character, who's very good, very interesting. They're really well drawn out characters with really strong performances. And you've got Sharlto Copley, who is a bit of a scene stealer of an actor himself. He plays the man who runs the fights that in an arena that Dev Patel's character Kid initially takes part in early in the movie in a gorilla mask. That's partly where the Monkey Man comes from, but it's also because he wears a gorilla's mask. But it also comes from kind of Indian culture and this story that is passed down from generation to generation as well. But Sharlto Copley he's just a force of nature, isn't he? He's probably best known for being in Neil Blomkamp movies like District 9. God, that feels like ages ago. Chappie, which was Dev Patel as well. And actually, Dev Patel wanted Blomkamp to direct Monkey Man, but he suggested, why don't you just do it yourself? And that is why we have the Dev Patel Monkey Man, which is it's fantastic. It's such a terrific film. It's just got this great energy about it, this great heart to it as well. Like I say, deeply rooted in Indian culture as well, which is fascinating the way they weave it in throughout it. So it becomes an action movie just far more heart. But it also has spectacle as well, and you really get invested in it. And I would say, although, like I say, I think it's going to come to streaming sooner maybe than expected, if you can get to a cinema, do, because it looks great on the big screen. It really does. So from one kind of action movie, I guess, to another, Argylle. Argylle is a Matthew Vaughn movie with just stars galore in it. Just to list some of the actors in it, I'm missing out a fair few here. There's Bryce Dallas Howard, Henry Cavill, Sam Rockwell, Bryan Cranston, Ariana DeBose, Dua Lipa, Richard E. Grant, John Cena, Samuel L. Jackson, Catherine O'Hara, Rob Delaney. It is, that maybe signifies kind of how much is thrown into this film and how many stars are in it. In its simplest form, trying to explain the plot, it's about an author who writes spy novels, which seem to mirror real life a little bit too much and what's going on in the world of espionage. It's all very meta, it's all very kind of tongue-in-cheek at moments, knows itself, and there's plot twists aplenty. For me, a movie of two halves. I really like the first half. I got a lot of time for the first half. It's got a lot of the Matthew Vaughn flourishes and touches that you'll see in his movies, like the Kingsman movies, Kick-Ass, Layer Cake, X-Men First Class. You'll see a lot of the cool things that he puts in those films to it. And yeah, some great action scenes in the first half as well. And it sets itself up really well. And I actually got to the kind of halfway, maybe just over halfway, but maybe edging towards 2/3. And I kind of thought to myself, I'm enjoying this. I don't know what the critics were talking about, because critically it was quite panned. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, yeah, what's bad about this? And then it kicks into this different kind of stage to it where it ties itself up in knots. It gets unnecessarily complicated. It tries to kind of be cleverer than it really needs to be. I think the movie was going in a good way, and it ends up, a lot of the fun and enjoyment of the first half of the movie kind of peters out by the time you get towards the end of it. And by the end of it, you're a little bit like, it's like, I'm not sure I really kind of care about where this is going anymore, which is such a shame, because it does do so much good stuff in the first half. And I think maybe it's fallen victim, which I think a lot of kind of movies do nowadays, where they try to create this world and they have this plan of, I'm going to build this world where we can have other movies from it, maybe books from it, maybe TV shows can spawn from it. And they don't just think, first off, just get the initial product right. That's the main thing. Get the first movie that you're trying to launch. I mean, how many kind of world-building films have we seen that have killed off the stuff before it's even begun? There's been so many. Probably the most recent one that springs to mind, I guess, was the Mummy new version with Tom Cruise in it, which was meant to start the whole MonsterVerse, and it never really got going from that. There's probably countless more. I think it all kind of stems from seeing what the Marvel movies did. But you've got to have, the Marvel movies kind of came from that strong Iron Man start, and you've got to get that first one right. And yeah, I mean, even around this film, there was there's all other bits and pieces to it. There was a book that came out that this movie was meant to be based on, which was written by an Ellie Conway, which is the name of the lead character played by Bryce Dallas Howard. And there was all mystery about that, and like, you know, nobody could find the actual Conway. Who is this? Who is this person that's written this book that this movie is based on? Then there was a theory that Taylor Swift had written the book, and then a couple of writers and eventually admitted, no, we wrote the book, and it's a movie tie-in, not a book that inspired the movie. Oh, it's again, it's all too meta and too complicated. And there's talk of Matthew Vaughn making movies from this that alternate, one set in the real world, referencing the spy world that Ellie Conway writes about, but then also the next movie would then be about the Argylle, the character she writes about that is a spy. So it's like, my brain's hurting just even thinking about that. So alternating one a meta one and one just a straight spy movie based on a novel that is a novel within another movie. Oh, honestly, that's the point. If you're getting into it like that, it's like you just kind of lose interest. It's too much. And you can kind of see why it flopped big time. I think it didn't even make half of the $200 million budget that it had. It's a shame because there are some good performances. Bryce Dallas Howard is very good in it. She's good in everything. You know, in the Jurassic World movie, she's always the good centre of those as well with Chris Pratt. Even if maybe what's going on around it isn't as great. Sam Rockwell, I love. He is superb in pretty much everything I've seen him in. He's such a terrific actor. And Henry Cavill gives us a little bit of a glimpse of maybe the James Bond that he could have been, albeit with a horrendous haircut. And it's just a shame. It just feels like a real wasted opportunity as well. There may well be, I think, they're going to probably still try to make another one. I know Matthew Vaughn's been talking about it. But it almost feels like he just threw so much into a mixing bowl without knowing exactly what kind of cake he was going to make at the end of it. And not a layer cake at all, which was a brilliant film back in the day. I loved that. That was kind of, I guess, Daniel Craig's audition to be Bond. But I don't know if this will be. I think Henry Cavill's done enough other stuff that he probably doesn't have to rely on this, whereas maybe Daniel Craig was a little bit more of a newbie to the world of movies, I suppose, in lead roles. But look, by all means, do watch it if you like a bit of madness. My daughter really enjoyed it. She loved it from start to finish. She thought it was really clever and enjoyable. She's a massive fan of the Kingsman films. I like them, but she's a massive fan of them. And it's definitely got a lot of the Kingsman feel to it. But yeah, worth a viewing if you want to kind of see what I'm talking about. And you may well like it. Let me know in the comments if you liked it. So the final mood of the bunch is about my father. Starring Sebastian Maniscalco and Robert De Niro. It's directed by Laura Taruso from a script by Maniscalco, and he's one of the biggest. If over here we're probably not as aware of him in the UK, maybe he's one of the biggest stand-up comedians in America, and this script that he co-wrote, it's loosely built based around his relationship with his own father. In essence, the plot is that he is looking to marry into this very well-to-do family. He's got a girlfriend of a very kind of high-ranking, very wealthy, I think they're hotel owners. Maybe the mum's a senator. I can't entirely remember now. It's that kind of film. You kind of forget a lot about it afterwards. And he has to bring his very old-school Italian immigrant hairdresser father, played by Robert De Niro, to the 4th of July celebrations at his girlfriend's house, and he is planning to propose to her that weekend. It's harmless enough. It is. It's amusing without really being laugh out loud funny. It's that kind of film. Maniscalco's been in various films in recent years, in Good Little Turns, as the Irishman, in The Irishman, in Green Book as well. He's a decent enough lead for it, although for someone who's considered one of the funniest kind of physical comedians in America, not sure this was really the best vehicle for him to showcase that. I wouldn't say he had many. He's almost like the straight guy, and it was like Robert De Niro was the comic turn. Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I'm sure he'll appear in things that will be a better vehicle for him. It's just a shame in a way that he wrote this, and it was he's called Sebastian. I think it's definitely called Sebastian. I'm trying to remember if his name in it might even be Maniscalco. I think it is. But yeah, you kind of think if you're going to write that, you want to write something that actually showcases you as well. I don't know. But look, De Niro here, he's in funny movie De Niro mode. Of course, he's a legendary, serious, Oscar-winning actor. And funny enough, this came out the same year as he's Oscar-nominated for Killers of the Flower Moon. But I've got a bit of a soft spot for his Bobby De Niro's comic turns. I do like them. Stretching all the way back to Midnight Run. Oh, I loved him in Midnight Run. Talk about a kind of an action film with a comedy. Oh, which is awesome. Charles Grodin as well. Honestly, one of my favourite films from that kind of time. But then in more kind of even more comedic terms, I guess you've got Meet the Parent films, Analyze That, Analyze This, Dirty Grandpa, Las Vegas. I always felt Las Vegas, that's one of those movies, you've heard me speak about them before if you've watched these, where if you turn it on the telly, I just can kind of watch it. I'm not saying it's a classic. It's not like Rain Man or Working Girl, which I think are previous examples I've used. It's just a really nice, amusing, funny film with a really nice tone to it. As was his also underrated, I felt, in the Intern. I thought his performance in that was really good. Not really a comedy film, but I just want to add that in because I do feel sometimes it kind of gets overlooked of how good he is when he does different kind of films. But look, the material is nowhere near as good for him to work with. Again, he's a kind of amusing without being laughed at. If there are any laughs in the movie, he probably gets them. And he's quite funny. Seeing him with a ponytail in a flashback as a hairdresser is a great image, which will probably the only thing that will stick with me from the film. The supporting cast is decent without really standing out. Probably Kim Cattrall is given the most to do as the mother of the prospective bride-to-be. That's Leslie Bibb. That's the name of the actress that plays his girlfriend. Like I say, it's not a film that you'll probably even remember the name of a couple of weeks later after you've watched it, but it's perfectly serviceable for a Saturday night film that's just like, it's all right, isn't it? It's one of those. It's not a horrible film. It's not a terrible film. It's just okay. That's probably the best I can kind of give it. But yeah, so that's the 4 movies. Very different films there. You can tell I kind of preferred the 2 cinema films, the trips I had this week, Civil War and Monkey Man. They were excellent. Argylle, bit of a mixed bag. And yeah, About My Father is okay. It's okay. One of those that will fit into the many kind of comedies that you watch and probably don't watch again. But it was, it was all right. I'm not sure if I'll get to the cinema again this week. We'll see. I do want to see Challengers is coming out. There's a Zendaya movie which is getting great reviews. Boy Kills World looks very interesting. I haven't seen any reviews for that, but the trailer, which I've had in the cinema a couple of times with recent films, looks remarkably filmed. And then you've got that little run where The Fall Guy comes out early next month. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes comes out soon after that as well. And then If, that's another one, the Ryan Reynolds kind of about imaginary friends movie that's directed by John Krasinski, and it's got loads of actors doing the voices and the characters, so that looks good. Deadpool and Wolverine trailer came out this week, and that looks phenomenal. I hope it's as good as it looks. Even just the trailer, you're like, there's a million. I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen it. I don't know if you can spoil a trailer, but do watch it. Not only is it very funny, but there's so many things in it. You think, whoa, that's that character. I love the fact they've just been given full license now to go fully into the Disney Marvel kind of realm. And you know the way Deadpool is meant to be. He will not hold back. And it looks very, very funny. So so there you go. So 4 more movies for the collection. Do with them what you will. Hopefully it gives you a few ideas of what to go and watch at the cinema, or watch on streaming when it comes on, or maybe just swerve because you don't like the sound of it. But hopefully enough there to keep you going. So time to head off, and hopefully we'll be back next week with some more little bits and pieces and movies that I've watched and giving you some ideas for what to watch or not to watch. So time to head off. As always, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.